What's up, guys? Welcome back to the vlog. My name's Matt, and while you were busy getting in an uproar about an uproar, well, I've been editing, and I know it doesn't seem like it. It's been a little bit spaced out video to video, but I'm about to get back on the grind. A couple quick notes. Number one, I'm actually actively looking for a video editor. I think I will have found it pretty much by the time this video is released, but if you know a guy and I'm still looking in a week, keep them in mind. All right, keep them in mind. Secondarily, there's going to be a whole slew of videos coming out pretty soon. Some of that will be from me, some of that will be from an editor. If you see small changes, that's most likely what's going on. And lastly, there's a few meetup games that I am basically publicizing that I was super behind. For those of you who weren't following me on social media, which by the way you should do, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all MEV Poker. If you weren't following me there, you might have missed that I had a pretty big tournament series I was going at ferociously, and so that's why I'm behind editing. But it was also kind of the catalyst to decide to get an editor. So hoping to get back to that, get back to a consistent video upload schedule, might even technically schedule it and go from there. But this one I'm pretty excited about. I went to a Madison, Wisconsin home game. And for those of you who weren't around for the vlog 4+ years ago, I actually started the vlog when I was living in Madison, and it's a great community down there. I was excited to go back and check out this game with Ricky. Ricky's a guy I've known for a while and has basically been trying to get me to come out to his game. Finally obliged and spent a couple days out there. This is the result of that. I'm really excited to share it with you all, so I hope you enjoy. Getting ready to go to Ricky's game felt like going home. For those of you who don't know, I used to live in the Madison area, and so I actually started to recognize a lot of the locations that we were near. It was kind of crazy because I inadvertently booked a hotel that was very, very near to where I used to live. Kind of cool going down memory lane, but I was here for poker. Greeting us at the door was Ricky, and it's great to see him as always. He's a pretty friendly and welcoming guy, and he makes you feel right at home right away. But once again, I was there for the poker, so it didn't take long for me to get into this game for 500 bucks. The game's 1-3-5, with the $5 being a bring-in and the straddle traditionally being to 10. Means that even though the blinds are technically 1-3, this isn't a tiny game by any stretch. Early on, I'm sitting on about a $600 stack. I look down at pocket 8's in middle position. It's folded to me and I decide to open to 15. The button calls and Ricky calls in the big blind. He's out for blood. The flop comes queen, queen, jack, rainbow, and when it checks to me, not really a lot I'm going to be doing here. I check it through and the button checks behind. Turn is a 9 of diamonds, second diamond on board, and we pick up a gut shot. It's not to the nuts though, not by any stretch, so I'm not really loving the spot. Ricky leads for 35 and I make the call. The button folds. The river's an offsuit 4. He checks, and I have a very easy check back here, have a lot of showdown value, and can win against a lot of his random bluffs that give up. I check back, he announces ace high, and I win. In his next hand, I'm in the straddle for $10, and it folds around to the big blind. I have queen 3 offsuit, and she blind jams 50 bucks. Given that she hasn't looked at her cards, I'm feeling pretty good about queen high here, but a little bit sheepish when I call. However, she shows me another queen, and I'm in somehow amazing shape because it's queen deuce. We decide to run it twice, which you can do in this game, and we managed to chop both boards equally. Seems pretty fair if you ask me. This next hand, there's a limp for 5, and a very active player makes it 15. I'm in the hijack with king jack offsuit, and while this could be a call sometimes, I would prefer to do it more in position. Something like the button would make this a better spot, so instead I decide to 3-bet and try to isolate against this player. I make it 50, she calls with 100 behind. Not exactly the best spot given that she has so little and now the pot's basically exactly what she has in her stack. The flop comes king 6-5 though, and we have a pretty easy decision when she lead jams. Yeah, she'll have a better king sometimes, but most of the time she's just going to have a draw or some kind of a worse king, maybe even something like a 6 or a 5. I snap and we decide to run it twice. However, she has king queen, her chance to scoop both boards. Yeah, not my finest moment. This hand, I'm in the $10 straddle once again, and the cutoff makes it 30. I look down at 6-5 offsuit and have a pretty easy defend. The flop comes out king 7-5, so we flop ourselves bottom pair and some backdoor potential. I decide to call a $25 bet. The turn is a 6, so we make 2 pair, and there's a lot of hands that get there. So this is a good card to examine leading on. I could do this with straights, I could do this with sets and 2 pair. I could also do it with combo draws and even just naked flush draws and straight draws. I lead for $65 and I just get the fold. This hand I open middle position with pocket 10s to 35 on a $10 straddle hand. The guy who just got it in pre for $300 with pocket 7s makes it $140. Yes, please. I decide to jam my $350 in there and he snaps with ace king off. So not in as good a shape as I would have hoped. Sure wish he had 7s again, but I could be in worse shape for sure. We decide to run it twice and I lose both once again. So far, this running it twice thing, not doing much for me.
Easy. It's so easy when it's against me. No.
King ball. Just no shame. Just no shame. He just.
You didn't even feel bad.
10.
I told you it's easy when it's against me.
This next hand, I don't have any footage, so I'm sorry for that, but I decided to include this hand anyway. I open ace-jack offsuit in the hijack to $35 over a $10 straddle. The button, the big blind, and the straddle all call, so we go 4 ways to queen, queen, 9. Checks through. Not much point in trying to bluff at this multi-way, I don't think. The turn is the 8 of hearts, and it checks to the button once again, who now decides to bet. He bets $40, and it folds to me. I'm not really figuring out what he can have here. Yeah, he might slow play a queen at some frequency, but it's pretty hard. Things like pocket 9s, pocket 8s would make sense. Maybe very occasionally jack 10, but I think those would bet flop at some frequency. I decide to call. The river's a queen, I check, and he bets 140 now. It's just really hard to piece together what he's repping now. Any value hand in his range besides a queen would give up now. Something like 9s or 8s just feels so counterfeit. I don't think they're betting. And something like a straight is really not feeling good with trips on board. I decide to call, and I'm actually good against king jack offsuit. So we know this player is definitely capable, and he's one we'll probably play a few more hands against, given that we got the 10s in against his ace king, and we still need some revenge. Next hand, there's a limp. Early position makes it 25, middle position calls. I'm in the cutoff with aces, and I bump it up to 85. Big blind jams for 126. You love to see it. And middle position calls. With the action not reopened, we don't really have an option here to re-raise, so I have the options between calling and folding. And I guess you can probably assume what I did. The flop comes out, queen 6-3 two-tone, and middle position checks. I decided to bet here, which I think is good, but I pick a size that I think is bad. I make it 170, and she just quickly folds. I think something like 75 or even less might be appropriate here. There's just so few hands that we can get action from, and the ones that we do get action from will call smaller sizes at a higher frequency than bigger sizes. But we get it in against the big blind who has ace king of diamonds, and we hold. Not hard to do on this board. In this next hand, action starts on the turn with the filming because I decided to take a break from filming, and of course, anytime I do that, you know I'm going to get involved in a hand. There's a straddle, and I have ace queen offsuit in the hijack, and I bump it up to 35. The big blind and straddle both call, so we go 3 ways to ace jack 3. I c-bet 30, both call, and the turn is the 10 of diamonds, second diamond on board. Checks to me, and I decide to bet again, this time for 85. I would check this back at some frequency multi-way, but I decide not to here. The big blind folds, and the straddle now puts on his big boy pants and makes it 300. The problem here is not so much the 300, and more the 600 he has behind. It's actually pretty close in my opinion. I wanted to do a deeper breakdown of this hand, but in this format it doesn't work super well, so just bear with me here for a couple seconds. The problem with this hand is that we actually block him having straights, but we also block him having his bluffs. And most of his bluffs are going to include a pair, and that's just hard for most players to wrap their head around and to actually go for. However, this player does seem pretty competent, so I was considering pretty much every option here. I thought it was very close, but given that I block all of the things that I thought he would use as bluffs, I decided to just fold and give him credit. Of course, he has to shove it in my face that he has the queen 10 offsuit and owned me. We talked a little bit about whether his call on the flop actually made sense given that it was multi-way, and with my small sizing, it's hard for it to be too bad, but it might not be great. In any case, we lose a little bit there and feel somewhat foolish, so we're trying to get after it once again. In this hand, there's a triple straddle of $40, and I'm in the first $10 straddle. Yeah, I started this, but I'm certainly not trying to finish it. However, Ricky limps the button, and I'm about $300, $400 deep with everyone who's in this game, except for this big straddler who has 800. I have king queen of diamonds, and now my decision is pretty interesting. We could make a standard raise here, but we're only playing roughly 20 bigs effective against one guy and basically 10 bigs effective against everybody else. I think it's a pretty easy jam spot, so that's what I do. Folds to Ricky, who snap calls. This time he has the 10s and we decide to run it twice, and this time I win both. So yeah, screw you, Ricky.
He got it. It's only right that he runs well.
In his next hand, Ricky opens middle position to 30 in a straddled pot. I look down at black aces in the hijack and I bump it up to 95. Folds around to Ricky and he calls. Flop comes king 9-9 and he check calls 50. Turn is the 7 of diamonds and he checks. I decide to check it back, mostly for deception and to maybe get him to stab with some things like gutters by the end. The river comes to jack though, bringing in some of those hands, and he just checks. At this point, I feel like I've underrepped my hand, and he might think I would just take a random stab here, so I decide to go for an overbet of 375. It's probably a mistake though, and he tells me I got too greedy. He's probably right. In this next hand, we're playing a PLO double board bomb pot, which, if you can believe it, is a thing that is starting to spread the nation through home games and casino games alike. I'm a big fan, mostly because they're just good action, but they can slow the game down if people don't know what's going on. At least in this game, the dealer knew what was up, and everybody was sort of used to it, so we kind of rolled with it pretty quickly, and that was nice. In this spot, I have ace 6-5 deuce and a couple of boards that are pretty connected to me, but in a kind of weird way. Now, bomb pots are tricky because you often don't want to get overcommitted with somewhat weak to marginal hands. However, there's a bet for only 10, and I believe this is a bomb pot for $10 or $15 with a number of people involved. I'm in the big blind position, and facing this $10 bet, I make the call. The turn checks through three ways with middle position, myself, and the small blind. And on the river, there's an opponent who bets 15 now. At this point, I'm pretty confident I have one board locked up, and it's pretty hard for me to ever really get screwed. I can also apply a lot of pressure to most of the hands that are being represented. So I go ahead and make it 150, trying to blast people out. However, we get the call. We chop it up as expected, kind of too bad. I feel like if I'd maybe applied pressure earlier in the hand, I could have gotten it through later, but it is what it is. In this next hand, we've convinced everybody to play some actual straight up PLO, and I 3-bet ace king 6 to pot and get one call. The board comes queen jack 6 and we decide to check it. The 9 comes on the turn and our hand is just getting weaker and weaker by the second. We check it back again. The river is an offsuit 7 or something equally weird, and we check it back again. We just lose. We just lose to a set, and that's that. In this next hand, I have ace 5-3 deuce in the small blind in a massive limped pot. I decide to complete, and we go to a board of jack, deuce, deuce. So I flop top trips. I decide to start leading out since it's a limped pot. I bet 30, and I get 2 calls. The turn is a 3 of hearts, so now 2 flush draws on board, and I've made a boat. I go for 90 this time, which might be a little bit too big, but I'm trying to go for value against a jack before the board gets too scary. 2 callers once again, the river comes a 5, and I've now made pretty much every boat possible. I bet 400 because the one guy who I think is actually pretty good at PLO only has 100, and so this bet actually represents a pretty small fraction of the pot, whereas the other player might actually call me with worse. However, the guy who short snacked with 100 has top boat. So unfortunate for me there, and I probably overplayed it a bit too, but it's me in PLO. And if you hadn't heard, Matt's pretty bad at PLO. In this next hand, there are 5 limps on my straddle, and I check with black pocket 4s. The flop comes out 6-5-4, so we're loving life. Technically, there's some hands that beat us, but we're okay with it for now. Checks us, and I lead for 40. There are 3 calls. Turns the queen to diamonds, so right away, immediate draw comes in. We're hoping to boat up here. It checks through. The river's the 7 of diamonds, which now means any single diamond beats us, and many cards will just straight up not fold. Makes no sense to bet, makes no sense to call, and multi-way, it checks all the way around, and Ricky wins with 3 deuce. So we were actually way behind. We needed to boat up right away, and we kind of lost the minimum here. Super lucky. In this last bomb pot of the night, I have king queen 8-5 with diamonds on a board that, again, it kind of works with what's going on, but it's kind of tough in these bomb pots to figure out how good your hand actually is. I don't have all the action on this one, but I do have some good footage. Let's watch. There's a ton of money in the pot by the time we get to the turn and the river, and at this point, I end up basically just having only one option here. I make my hand on one board, and I go all in, getting the last player who was in the pot to fold his way out of a pretty big side pot. The pot was also super multi-way before the others got all in, and so there was enough in the main pot worth chopping. I was actually somewhat close to scooping it, but I was okay just taking down half. All in all, it was a pretty nice night for me. I had to rebuy for 500 after I lost pocket 10s against ace king on 2 boards, but only being in for 1k and cashing out 1830 for a profit of $830 was pretty sweet. I also think Ricky lost in the game, so that was a kind of nice bonus as well. All joking aside, I had a great time, and I really hope to get back there sometime soon. It was really fun seeing everybody in Madison, a lot of guys who I've kind of played with or gotten to know a little bit over the internet, just because we were all local and part of the Madison poker community. If you guys wonder why I rave about Color Out Poker so often, this is part of it. The community involved is really amazing, and all these players tend to get along super well. It really is just Midwest nice in an actual good way, not a sarcastic way. If you guys are in the area and you're interested, you can check out the game by reaching out to Rick Clarkson on Instagram. That's Ricky. He'll help you get hooked up with the game. I also played one additional night there. I'm not sure if that one will make it into a vlog as there were a little bit fewer hands played, but it was a blast once again. I won in that game too, so maybe I'll find my way into another video. I hope you guys enjoyed watching this vlog. Please subscribe if you haven't already and share this video with a friend. And always remember, just triple.